History doesn't collapse in a day. It collapses in warnings people ignore. History doesn't fall suddenly. The most dangerous moment in history is when the signs appear and people convince themselves nothing is happening. Before something collapses, the world usually whispers first. Not with announcements, not with explosions, but with small signs most people ignore. In Scripture, the turning points rarely begin with visible events. They begin with winds shifting. Daniel 7:2 describes the four winds of heaven stirring the earth. Wind represents forces moving under God's authority. Change begins where people aren't paying attention. Then comes the moment when human power keeps pushing forward, believing it still controls the outcome. Proverbs 16:18 warns that pride goes before destruction. History is filled with leaders and empires who believed they were unshakable, until suddenly the world stopped cooperating. Isaiah 17:12 compares nations to roaring seas. When the waters stir, something deeper is shifting. Collapse rarely begins on the surface. It begins underneath. Quiet decisions, slow compromises. Pride people refuse to confront. By the time the surface breaks, the storm has been forming for a long time. Then the signs move higher. Joel 2:31 describes the sun darkening and the moon turning to blood. These signs are not meant to terrify people. They are meant to wake people up. Because the most dangerous moment in history is when people see the signs and still believe nothing will change. That is what happened to Pharaoh. Exodus 15:4 describes Pharaoh's army being cast into the sea. The fall didn't happen in one moment. The signs were there long before the waters closed. And that raises a question. Pharaoh in that story is not just a ruler. Sometimes the Pharaoh is human pride. Sometimes it's systems that believe they control everything. And sometimes it's the stubborn part of our own hearts that refuses to listen when the winds begin to turn. So the real question isn't whether signs appear. History proves they always do. The real question is this: when the winds begin to shift, do we humble ourselves and change course? Or keep marching forward like an army into waters already beginning to close? Jesus warned in Matthew 16:3 that people can read the sky but miss the signs of the times. So ask yourself, are the winds around you changing and you haven't noticed? Or worse, have you noticed and chosen not to listen? Because the warning signs that destroy nations often appear in our own lives first. Small compromises, growing pride, quiet convictions ignored. And by the time the storm arrives, the winds have been turning for a long time. Have you ever seen warning signs in your life, but ignored them until it was too late? If that has happened to you, you're not alone. Sometimes wisdom begins when we admit we should have listened sooner. Stay watchful, because the winds always turn before the storm.